Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Rants on the Ruling Class podcast for Primary the Ruling Class. My name is Bill. This is my cohort, Todd, and we are happy to be in front of you today. And there's a lot of mixed emotions going on right now around the country. I would say, Todd, would you agree with that?
Fair statement, yes.
Yeah, a lot of things going on, and of course, the establishment's doing everything it can to keep us depressed, to keep us down. But you know what? That's not what's really happening behind the scenes. So there's a lot of things to talk about here. And what I told Todd a few moments ago is one of the overarching themes I would like to really keep in mind today. And I would ask all of our listeners to do the same thing, because I can tell you that the next 11 months, I say with confidence, the next 11 months are going to be unlike anything we have ever witnessed as Americans. And this is not a prediction I take glee in prognosticating with. It is just
Right.
simply, if you read all the writing on the wall, if you look at everything that's happening right now, it's pretty much inevitable. And we need to be prepared for it. But the first thing in the way of preparation, I'm going to talk a little bit about food and supplies and stuff, because all that's important. And we might run down some scenarios about what could happen and what we need to be prepared for. But the main thing is how we think. The main thing is our mentality. It's our attitude. The main thing is our patriotism. Do we wear it on our sleeve, or is it deep down embedded within us? In other words, I believe that more Americans than ever before, perhaps every single one of us, are going to be required to dig deep and to find that dedication to freedom, the dedication to patriotism that our forefathers had, that our grandfathers had, that our fathers had, that made this country strong and kept it strong, because we are going to be tested, some more than others. And, I pray that it's as easy on everybody as it possibly can be, but we all need to be mentally prepared. So that's going to be a big part of my message today, Todd, along with talking about all of the good things that are happening. Because if we keep our mental attitude right, if we do the right things, and if we persevere, we're going to win. We're going to come out of this ahead of things. And it won't be as simple as next November we elect Trump and everything's good. That's when a big part of the battle starts again, right? It'll be different. We'll have different things to contend with. It's more saboteurs at that point. It's more holding, the remaining rhinos' feet to the fire. It's more about making sure that our politicians have the strength of character to do what they said they will do and what we have ordered them to do. And I do use the word order because they work for us. And it's about time we remembered that. So there are a lot of things going on here, a lot of moving pieces. But if we remain strong, we can weather the storm, and we can keep our country, bring it back, some might say, I would probably say, and we can have a great future for our children. And that is the number one goal, I think, is to make sure, because short term, yeah, we may have to sacrifice, we may have to do some things, but the most important thing is what kind of country are our kids going to grow up in? What kind of
Right.
future are they going to have? What are the future generations? What is our legacy, right? So that's what I want to focus on today. And we'll bring it down to the micro. We'll talk a little bit big picture, but we'll bring it down to the micro to each and every one of us. And I'll just start off by saying this. I hope everybody hears this in the right vein. I promise I'm not trying to speak offensively, and I'm asking everybody not to listen defensively to my words here. But I am going to charge everybody with asking yourself right now, what am I doing? What is every individual doing? And there are two things that really count. Now we can go on social media and we can talk all day long, and that's something. I'm not totally belittling that, but I am talking beyond that. Because if you want to know what's important to a person, what do? You open up their checkbook and you open up their calendar. Where are they giving their time? Where are they giving their money? And, the next 11 months are going to challenge all of us, all of us. So everybody can do what they can do. And nobody on the outside looking in can look at you and judge you. Nobody can say, are you doing everything you can? And that's not the purpose of what I'm talking about here. I'm not talking about what other people think of you. I'm not talking about, did you do as much as your neighbor? There's none of that. I'm asking you to look into your heart and ask yourself, am I doing everything I can do? Because that's what it's going to take. It literally is, it's going to take that. And it could be as small as not backing down in a conversation with a neighbor. When they say something stupid like, well, Trump's going to be a Hitler, you can have a polite conversation. You don't have to get mad about it, but you can just ask them, say, well, I'm curious because I haven't seen any evidence of that. What evidence are you looking at? Is it just what somebody else told you? Because there's a lot of people running around saying that, but I haven't met one yet that could give me any evidence of it. It might be as simple as just mildly and calmly asking the question, instead of remaining silent. That's, one of the lower levels, but it's an important level because we've talked about the butterfly effect many, many times on this podcast. And, the whole idea behind that, for those that don't know, is that a butterfly flapping its wings in China can cause a mild ripple in an air current that can cause something else to happen, maybe a cloud to move 6 inches, or you never know. And it builds up, and the next effect builds to the next effect to the next effect. It can turn into a typhoon on another hemisphere. So you never know what you say to a person that might cause them to think about something, to say something to somebody else, or maybe not back somebody else they would, or not speak up in a bad way that they might have before. And that causes somebody else. It has a ripple effect. And you never know what that can lead to. That's why I'm saying if every one of us take responsibility, if every one of us realize that it's on us. And I guess the question I would ask everybody is, in today's world, what does it mean to be an American? And you have to answer that in your own heart, because I think it's more than your citizenship record, right? It's more than, do you fly a flag in your front yard? It's more than, who do you pay your taxes to? It's what's in your heart. It's, are you willing? It's what you're willing to stand up for. It's what you believe. And I don't just mean believe in an esoteric way. I mean, what do you stand for? What are you willing to take a stand for? Those are the types of things that are going to be so incredibly important over the next 11 months. And I am confident. I feel that the American people have a strength of character and a depth of character that has been glossed over the last 10 or 20 years, but it's there. And we need to reignite it in some cases. We need to display it in other cases. And we need to be strong. We need to be mentally strong. So that's really the big part of what I'm hoping to get across today, Todd. And I just think it's very important that we reflect for a moment here as we go into the holiday season, as we get ready to enter the new year, which I think will be the most fateful year in recent history in our country, possibly since the Civil War. Who knows?
Maybe ever.
Maybe ever. Maybe ever. So that's where I'm coming from this morning. So anyway, I know that everybody's been busy. I know the economy sucks. I know people are tight. I know that the problem is when the economy is tight and everything else, people have to work harder to make the same amount of money. And then because the government sucks so much of the money out of our economy and out of our own incomes and everything else, it just, it keeps making it harder and harder and harder. I've talked before about how when I first went to college, you could get out of school, actually high school, even you could get out of high school. I rented a house with a buddy, and it wasn't an apartment. It was a nice, decent, it was an older home, but we rented a home, and the two of us could afford that. We could do it on our incomes. I could still pay to go to college, or save up money to go to college my first year over the summer. I could, there are a lot of things I could afford to buy a car. I could afford to put gas in it. I could afford to go to work. I could afford to do those things. And now that's almost impossible for most Americans to do, but that's because of the effect on our economy, which leads me to one other thing that I want to bring into focus here. When we talk about what's happening to our economy, I think it's very important that we understand it's not just the government stealing our economy. It is the government's extension into the business world and their control of corporate, what we used to call corporate America, which is now what I call multinational America. Because all of these companies, when they're free to collude, when they're free to do the things they do, they're pricing and they're monopolies. Look at Google. Why have we never been able to get an antitrust case against Google? That's just one example of many, many, many. Okay. Look at the pandemic, what it did to the big box stores and shut down all the small businesses, right? So all of these things add up together. And by the way, it's ironic because you hear everybody talk about fascism. They say, well, Trump's a fascist and everything else. Let me let me educate everybody for a moment about what fascism really is. And going all the way back to Mussolini in Italy in the World War II era. Fascism is when government and the big businesses in a nation collude and work together to where the differentiation between the two disappears. So all the businesses do the government's bidding, and it doesn't make a difference which payroll you're on. They're all on the same page. That's fascism. That's what we have here. And I mean, we're dead in the midst of it right now. So with the BlackRocks and all the investment firms controlling a lot of the companies out there, and with the China gates being open and the incredible wealth that globalism has given to the top very elite and the top corporations and the C-suites of all the big major multinational companies, that's what we're fighting against. And that's why it's so important that we do win this election, not just the presidency, but all the down ballot elections and everything else that come along, because we're fighting fascism, globalism, fascism, communism. It's all the same thing. Understand, they're all isms, and they're all here to destroy America, the real America, what we believe in our hearts, and to crush us because we're not a part of that equation. So all the things that used to be considered a conspiracy theory, I was listening to Tucker Carlson's interview of Alex Jones, and Alex Jones
Good
is
one.
always, yeah, oh, it's a great one. He's always been way out there in front, and a lot of people consider him as conspiracy theorist. And there's some things he said that I'm like, it's kind of out there, Alex, over the years. But Tucker reminded us some important things. You know, Alex Jones predicted 9/11, not just that it
Pretty
would
crazy.
happen. He predicted who it would be by. He predicted Osama bin Laden. He predicted how it would happen. He predicted to be the World Trade Centers. He talked about airliners. He even predicted the month, did he not? Or maybe it was a quarter, the 3 month period, something like that. They got it down
That
very
was in
closely.
July, and he said it would be in the next 6 months, I think he said. So
Yeah. So, I mean, dead on. And that's just one of the things he talked about that everyone just say, oh, here he goes again, ranting and everything else. He's talked about globalism for even before we started talking about it. He's talked about all of these things, and they have been coming true. They are real. We need to understand this. The Bilderberg Group, the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, all of these people wanting to control us, wanting us to eat insects, right? Wanting to get rid of, cattle production, no meat, you don't need to eat meat anymore, wanting to keep us geographically secluded in these little cities and areas that they control, take away all our freedoms, our rights. That is their agenda. It's a 2030 agenda. You can go read it. I think they actually moved it up a little bit because of some of the things that happened in the COVID and everything else. I think Trump happened is what happened. But so that's what we're faced against. Now, we can beat that. And you're seeing a lot of things around the world that are reflecting that. A lot of elections, whether it's in Norway, whether it's in Argentina, a lot of areas, even in with Hungary, even with the Economic Union, right, of the EU in Europe, European Economic Union. You're seeing a lot of countries like, you got Hungary, and you've got other countries now really starting to pull back from that and stand in the way. They actually had a vote the other day that was supposed to be, they're supposed to admit Finland, I think it was, into the EU and to NATO is what it was, and thought it should be a slam dunk deal, and it didn't happen because you had some of these other countries stand up and block it that they were normally counting on. So that's kind of a bigger global picture. When it comes back to the United States, though, there are some great things happening, Todd. And I want to start off with Georgia because we know how much of a disappointment Georgia was this last election cycle. In 2020, Georgia's been a red state forever. Everything was going our way. Stacey Abrams was supposed to be this big Democrat messiah that was coming in, turning the state blue. Atlanta, the big city of Atlanta and the heavily Democrat
she's
populated
big,
state.
all right. I don't think I'd call her a messiah, but she's definitely big.
She is. And everyone was saying all the donors were behind her and everything else because they were thinking, okay, she's doing it. She's turning Georgia blue, which is a nail in the coffin. Now they went so far as to literally corrupt, in my opinion, Raffensperger and Governor Kemp, and they did everything they could to facilitate that and help it. And Raffensperger and Kemp are still there, but guess what's happening, Todd?
I didn't
Look,
know this until today. This is kind of interesting. It really is. I'm surprised.
you know,
I guess I should say I'm surprised, but not shocked. That'd probably be a better way to state it, but.
Well, a lot of the efforts have been going on since 2020 behind the scenes to shore up our election integrity and do things. They haven't been home runs, but they've been there and they've been constant. There have been a lot of patriots standing up. Some of them have been persecuted and prosecuted even for
Yeah.
doing so, but they've still had an effect. And Georgia is apparently one of those places where they have had an effect because they have gotten through some laws there that tighten up, some voter restrictions and ID restrictions and mail-in ballots, those type of things. So much so that if you follow the money, all of the Democrat donors, the big major donors, and a lot of the dark money going into Georgia, a lot of it's dried up, Todd. As a matter of fact, a lot of the Democrat leaders in Georgia are screaming at the top of their lungs, saying, "Hey, it's past time. You got to give us those funds again." And the response they're getting is Georgia is no longer in the top 5 list of priorities for the Democrat campaign, for the Democrat
Well, I
Party.
think they've cheated all they can cheat there. I don't know how they could cheat anymore. I mean, they're dead to rights. Everybody knows that Georgia was ripe with fraud and that the election was nothing but a sham in Georgia, and it's all out in the open now. So I don't know how they could possibly think they could not. They can't do it anymore. They've done everything they can do there. So that's why I say I was surprised but not shocked by it because they've exhausted every cheating opportunity they've had in Georgia to the point to where it's all out in the open and you can't be any more blatant than they already were. So I don't know how they would cheat anymore.
Trump is surging. Trump's popularity in Georgia is surging, and not just among the white demographic.
Oh no.
I mean, among blacks, among everybody, his popularity is surging incredibly. You add all of this together, and that financially, at least, the Dems are pulling out of Georgia. They're pretty much giving up on it. Now, the Trump camp also, to kind of switch gears just slightly, the Trump camp also has made it's not really an announcement, but it's been reported that the Trump camp has its eyes on New Jersey. They think
Yes, I heard that. Yeah,
they're starting to devote a lot of resources to New Jersey. They think, and remember, it was a lot closer than anybody thought last time around. But they're devoting a lot of resources there. They think they can pull New Jersey. Now you talk about a game changer. And there are some
that would
other
be large. That'd be big.
Be huge. There are some other things out there that are, we don't want to go into detail about every state down there, but right now the Democrats are in a panic mode. They've got to keep Pennsylvania, they've got to keep Michigan, they've got to keep Wisconsin. Okay, they've got to keep Arizona, and North Carolina is one that they have banked on. But Trump took North Carolina barely, and there was a tremendous amount of election fraud in North Carolina this last time around. Well, guess what? A lot of those election fraud, a lot of the laws have changed where you can't do that as much. So originally, we believe, because they spent a lot of resources, a lot of financial resources over the last 3 years to shore up North Carolina, but it's starting to look like that may not happen. It may stay red, and there's a very good chance of that. And they cannot afford to lose North Carolina, not if they're already giving up on Georgia. They just can't.
No, that's going to be bad for them, which is good.
Absolutely. Yeah, so there are a lot of great things that are happening right now. And you've got to remember a certain psychological effect too. When culture changes among demographic groups like blacks, Latinos, for example, or even, white suburban females, that's another demographic. When demographics swing and the culture changes, it's not obvious, because you got to remember, most of the people that in their hearts and minds have made up their mind to switch, or that they're tired of it, they're not going to announce it. They're not going to answer it in the polling. They're not going to tell their next door neighbors. They're just going to get quieter and quieter, and then either stay home when it comes time to vote, or in the secrecy of the ballot box, vote their heart.
Right.
And I truly, in my heart, I believe that's what we're seeing over and over and over around the country, not just North Carolina. So I think there's a tremendous amount of optimism, a tremendous amount of hope out there. And I think the Democrats know it. This is why they are panicking. And this kind of leads us to the section I wanted to get into, talking about the next 11 months and what we can expect.
Well, let me address a little bit for me. You're talking about what it means to be an American currently. For me, what it means to be an American right now is I believe that we have been Americans have been told what to believe for so long that I'm at the point where I question every single thing that I hear all constantly. I don't know what's true. I don't know what's a lie. Uh, I'm exhausted from trying to sort it out. Being American right now, if you really love this country, it's a perpetual quest for the truth because you know you're being lied to daily, every day, all day long. And you know when they say something that most of the time exact the opposite is true, but in your mind, you want to believe them and you start questioning yourself. Am I the crazy one? Maybe I really am the crazy one. And it's to be an American right now, if you love this country, it's exhausting. It's very taxing on emotions. You know, a lot of days I get angry. I get really mad at the stuff going on in this country. And what that means is if you love this country, you know, you hear the term greater good all the time, do this for the greater good. If you want to do something for the greater good, stand up for America. We're the last shining beacon in the entire world. And if this country falls, all of mankind falls. Where are you going to go? Where are people going to go? Where are they going to flee? What are we going to do? I'm not eating bugs. I'm not going to eat bugs. I'm not doing it. You know, and I'm not going to have them tell me that I've got to live in a 15-minute city, that they've got to track me everywhere I go, that we can't have our guns, that we have to do everything they tell us when they tell us. They can shut our car off whenever they want if we're not supposed to travel. I'm not living like that. So for me, to be an American now, it's a constant quest to gather the information and the knowledge that we need to stand up against this globalism and the movement that they're pushing down our throat. I'm tired of the Democrats. They're evil. Klaus Schwab is real. He's not a monster. Well, he is a monster, but he's a monster that's coming out into the open now. The World Economic Forum is real. Agenda 2030 is real. They've pulled this stuff off for the last 40 years right under our eyes, and we have been walking around in a slumber to the point to where we didn't even know what was happening. Well, now we know what's happening. So we as Americans, what are we going to do? You really don't have, you don't have, either you're going to be a sheep, you're going to follow, you're going to cave and subdue to what they want, or you're going to dig your heels in and fight for liberty and freedom and the stuff that this country was based on and stand up against the World Economic Forum and the globalist movement. That's what it means to be an American. You want to talk about doing something for the greater good. That's what we got to do for the greater good. The people all over the world are counting on us as Americans to stand up to the tyranny because we're really the last country that can do so. Mm-hmm. No other country can do it.
You know, when I think about this, I think about how far we've come as a nation, as a people, and as individuals. You know, I wrote a book in 2017 talking about the ruling class. And back then, nobody used that term. Nobody was talking about the ruling class. That was the Alex Jones conspiracy theory stuff. Nobody paid any attention to it.
You hear it all the time now.
Everybody, and they know exactly what you're talking about. They know who you're referring to. They know the deep state. They know what's going on. So we've come a long way. And I'm very proud of what you've accomplished, Todd. What we've accomplished at PRC, what you've accomplished. You've been such an integral part of everything that happened here with PRC. And we talk about butterfly wings and consequences. I mean, we could go down a whole list, but I'm so proud of what PRC has been able to accomplish. We were able to, we've got numerous members of PRC that are now elected on school boards. Yes. That are now making a difference in their local area. We've got, we've been able to sponsor some big events like the Western Conservative Summit. We've been able to do a lot of great things like that. We've got people that are members or former members because everybody contributes when they can and participates when they can. And I get that, but we've got former members that have set up election integrity commissions and organizations and done canvassing and, we've got all kinds of things like that, but that's a butterfly wing. That's a butterfly wing. Okay. You start off with one simple thing that you do what you can do. I like to write. I wrote a book, not everybody can write a book. That's okay. You don't have to. But you said, I'll step up. I'll help organize this. I'll do a podcast. I'll do whatever, you've done that. And look at the butterfly wings. Look at the effects, the ripple effects, and the lives that's touched and the things that's created. There needs to be, it's not that we're a big deal. It's that there are thousands and thousands of people like us and our listeners out there that are doing the same thing. And that's what we can't stop. We have to keep going. We have to keep our heads It is frustrating. It's maddening. But we have to keep our goals in mind. We have to keep sight of the big picture, like you say, and the greater good. So I'm with you every step of the way on that, and we're not going to go anywhere. We have been deplatformed. We have been, we've had hit pieces run on us. We've had personal attacks come against us. We've had all kinds of things. We've had financial challenges that we should never have had to have faced. But it's all part of the war, the game, I guess you'd say.
Yep.
It's all part of the effort, and we're going to keep going, and we're going to keep being strong in it and do everything we can do. So, one of the when we're looking ahead, and by the way, I appreciate you and I appreciate what you just said there about being an American, because that's true. It's absolutely true for every single one of us. And I applaud our audience, because our audience has done a great job. I wish we had an audience the size of Steve Bannon, but it is what it is, right? And
But you look at our audience, and it's not a big audience, but it's a very engaged and now active audience, and they're making a difference. So all you people that are involved in the school boards, town boards, all that kind of stuff, election integrity projects, canvassing and stuff like Bill said, thank you, because that's really what it takes. That's what, there's got to be. I believe there's thousands of movements just like ours going all over the place. Like I said, we don't have captured the Steve Bannon type audience, but our members and people that are, I guess you say, grew up with us here at PRC, they're engaged and they get it.
I remember being in a kind of a back room, a meeting behind the meeting at one of those election integrity forums we were talking about. You were there. And I just asked a question. There was probably, I don't know, 20, 30 people in the room. And I asked a question of them. I said, look, who is the enemy? Can you name the enemy? Because if you can't name the enemy, you can't win. And back then, there weren't a lot of answers, were there? People are like, now people know it's globalism. People know what's happening. It's the deep state, the administrative state, all these different names we can use, but now people get it. That's how far we've come in a relatively short period of time in our whole society, our whole country. So it is having an effect. It is working.
It is, and I think part of frustration, you talk about being, I get frustrated, but when you've been awake to the fact that globalism is what's driving all of this and is controlling our politicians and controlling all of our policy, controlling all of our engagement in foreign wars. When you've been awake to that for 7 years now, like I have, and your book is the one that really set me on the path to where I at that point in time, I knew that everything I'd been told, everything that I believed was in question at that point. It woke me up to the point to where I have spent the last 7 years digging and running down every single rabbit hole you can run down. And before I had read your book, I would fight somebody if they told me George Bush was a bad president. I would have stood up for George Bush, and I would have fought that person for saying such a thing.
Well,
George
a lot of us
Bush,
did.
not a good president. The part of the problem that we're in right now, we gave up a lot of freedoms on the Patriot Act, and that's directly at the feet of George Bush. He's the one that's got us, that put this on a fast track to the mess that we're in now, because they created a problem, come up with a solution, and we're more than willing to give up our freedoms for the comfort, which you should never do.
Security.
But we did as a whole, and he is the driver of that has us in the boat that we're in now. And there's nobody that can tell me different. It's the way it is.
It's the whole Bush clan, right?
Yes, it is.
Along with, all of the other clans out there that have been doing the same thing and heading the same direction, like our former presidential candidate from Nevada. He passed away.
From Arizona, McCain.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Arizona McCain. Yeah, the McCain clan, for lack of a better cartel, whatever you want to call them.
Birds of a feather.
Yeah, there's dozens of them out there. There's tons of them on the Democrat side, but we've got them on the Republican side too, and that's what makes up the core of the Rhino movement.
The Uniparty.
The Uniparty. It's all about globalism. That's where the money comes from. That's where the greed and the corruption comes from. So anyway, we kind of talked about that enough. Let's talk about the next 11 months. One
thing I want to talk about for the next 11 months is we got this guy, Vivek Ramaswamy, that's in all these, that is handing everybody's rump to him in these debates. I'm not a Vivek guy. I have my own opinions on Vivek. I'm not sure I trust him, but one thing about it is he doesn't lie. And everything that he says is true. And there's a part of me, I was actually talking to somebody else that's a member, and they brought up the question, maybe he's a plant to wake up the youth movement in this country, because a lot of the young kids, they're tired of the old dudes running the country. They're like, whatever. But really, you look at Vivek, the only person he's given props to is Trump. Everything he echoes is Trump. All of his ideas are basically like Trump. Some of them are even more radical than Trump's, which I agree with. Some of them need to happen sooner than later. But I can't help but think that maybe he is trying to it's shaking some of this youth in this country to like, well, maybe Donald Trump wasn't such a bad guy. Maybe he really did have stuff going on the right track, because what we're doing now certainly isn't working. I mean, my daughter is feeling this inflation and the cost of stuff living. She's out on her own now. And she's like, Dad, how did you guys do this? How do you do this? I said, it's not always been like this, but you took out and busted out on your own at a tough time in this country. And next thing she says is, Joe Biden sucks. I'm tired of it. But there's a lot of youth in this country that, and it's not all Joe Biden. I'm not talking about that. It's the globalist movement that they're trying to destroy our economy and all that. And, I understand that. Bill gets that. And most of you listening to this understand it. But the youth in this country are waking up. And I just got back from Nashville last week. We took my daughter down there for her 21st birthday. And I seen a lot of kids, 21 to 27 or 28, wearing Trump shirts, wearing Trump hats. Several of the honky tonks we were in listening to music broke out in F Joe Biden chants to the point to where it was deafening. And even the people on the stage were like, well, I didn't really anticipate this, but if this is what we're going to do, we're going to do it. And then everybody starts screaming and hollering and stuff. So I think there's a little bit of an organic youth movement. And I think we need to give a little bit of credit to the youth, because they're the ones that are just starting out on their own and they're struggling. They're on the struggle bus right now. And they're like, how in the world can it be like this? This is horrible, which is good. It's shaking them, but I think give them some credit. They're starting to come around.
Well, I think it was you that first started saying, at least in our circle here, started saying that it's not bad enough yet. It's got to get worse.
Right.
And when it gets to that point, then we'll see the whole shift. And I think it's getting to that point. And you're right. There is a huge culture shift going on, and we could go down in our think tank for members. We put out signs of that all the time. We say, look at this. This is another indication the culture is changing. And there's a ton of those things out there, a ton of signals, ton of signs. And so there's a lot of room for optimism, but again, we're going to have to weather the storm. And so it's kind of a two-headed snake in one respect, because on the one hand, the worse it gets, the more people wake up. But on the other hand, man, I don't want it to get any worse, right? I mean, you don't want to see people struggle and everything else, but
right. Yeah.
But a two-edged sword, I guess, the analogy I'm looking for. So, but here's the thing. The next 11 months, Todd, it's going to get worse. It is going to get worse for all of us.
It has to, because you look at the 9 indictments that they just dropped on Hunter Biden. And if you've dug into that, Brian Cates did a great Substack on the root of those indictments and what's coming next. There's really nowhere else to go, but where did the money come from that he didn't pay taxes on? They indicted him for not paying taxes, but where did he get his income from? That's got to come out.
What income did he not pay taxes on? Exactly.
No,
what was the income he didn't pay taxes on?
Right.
Yeah, and they left out any kind of FARA violations. So there's going to be another step to this whole thing.
And when that happens, every single time, the focus shifts to the Democrats and the globalists. Something bad happens. False flag of some sort happens. So
I think what the Democrat strategy is right now, and by the way, hear me on this. The Democrats are in disarray. The globalist movement is in disarray in the United States.
You better believe it is.
And so when I say the Democrats are doing this or whatever, it means a certain faction of the Democrats are doing this. They're not united in their strategy right now, which is really good news for us. But I think there's a whole Biden faction or clan or cartel or whatever that's trying to hang on to power, hang on to everything they can. They don't want to resign. They don't want to get out of the way. They don't want to move. You got a bunch of other factions that are saying we got to get rid of Biden. And I suspect that some of these indictments against Hunter are a last ditch effort by some of those globalist factions to try to force Biden out so that they
Could
can
be.
have a new candidate. Now, the problem is it's so late in the game for them. And it's going to be really, really tough. One of the strategists I heard speaking that I do respect said, well, they'll do it at the Democrat National Convention. And if it happens, other than Biden mysteriously having a heart attack or, heaven forbid, passing away by one means or another, that's when it would happen. And the Democrat National Convention, I meant to look that up before we started our podcast. Is that in March or
I don't even know, to be honest
May?
with you.
May? It's not that far away. I mean, we're in December already. So it's a few months away from now. And that's when they would do it. That's when they would bring in a Gavin Newsom or something. But there's a lot of steps got to be put in place because they can't end up with Kamala, right? So they can't have Biden. Part of one of the flaws with the assassination theory is that they'll have Biden assassinated to remove him if they have to. One of the flaws with that theory is we end up with Kamala. And so there'd have to be something in place for her to step down or whatever. I mean, there's just a lot of things that have to happen for that to work. So
She's entirely too stupid to be in that
oh,
position. No way they'll let that happen.
the most logical place for it to happen would be at the Democrat National Convention using the super delegates to overthrow the will of all the Democrat voters, right? All the other delegates, and just install whoever they want, like a Gavin Newsom, or I think you said Michelle Obama a number of times, whoever, Big Mike, whoever it might be. But the problem is, you think about that. Did you find out the date? Is it May?
No, I didn't even look.
Okay, no problem.
I'll find out.
Whether, it's going to be the first part of the year, March, April, May. I don't think it's as late as June. I think it's before that. But anyway, one of the challenges they're going to have is that it's so late in the cycle because what we're doing is we're talking about culture change. Okay. And culture change doesn't happen on a dime. It doesn't happen within a few months. I mean, it's taken 3 years of the globalists having their puppet in office in order for the culture to change the way it has now in our favor. They're not going to be able to turn it around in just a few months, in just 5 or 6 months. So it creates a real conundrum for them.
It's in August.
It's in August? Is it that late?
Yeah, that's kind of weird. I thought it was way before that.
Okay. Well, you see, even at that, look how little time that would give them if it's in August. How little time that would give them. So they're in a
3
mess.
months.
They're in a
3
mess.
months.
Yeah, they can't do it in 3 months. They've got a total mess going on. So there are a lot of other very intelligent people that are offering some speculation. And that's all I want to do now. I want to be very clear. This is all speculation, but because we don't know what's going to happen, the only thing I want to say for sure, something's going to happen. Something's going to happen. So, is it going to be that they find some way to put us in martial law so that when they do install somebody else, it can be, somebody that by, maybe they locked in everything to martial law, so we have a 100% vote by mail. Maybe that's the strategy they're looking for. Maybe I don't think the Supreme Court's going to go for that, though. I truly don't. I don't think.
Well, they have to shove all their chips in. They're on a short stack right now, and they aren't going to have many options when it push comes to shove. So
that's right. And you've got this other flu or whatever it is in China right now. Maybe they're going to try to build up another pandemic. I just saw the new director of the CDC is telling everybody, well, we need to start wearing masks again.
No way.
No one's listening to her. Yeah. So, I mean, but they'll try something. When I say something, they're probably going to try a combination of some things to see what sticks, right? To see what they can get to work. But I also do not take off the table. And I hate to even talk about this, but I don't take assassination off the table for Biden or Trump. And that's something that, I mean, understand these people are that desperate. And the
other thing that concerns me when you talk about Trump is, he's got all these sham indictments and everything going on with in New York there with Alicia or whatever, James or whatever her name is. But if he is thrown in jail, this is why I don't think he's going to go to jail. This is just having watched a couple other talking heads talk about it and forming my own opinion. If he is thrown in jail, this country will burn. I don't think they're going to put him in jail because that'll make him a martyr, and I don't think they want to do that. I think it's just more to drag it out and muck him up before the election than do everything they can. But I honestly don't. I may be wrong, but that's my opinion. I don't see why they would want to do that, because that would you talk about poking a bear, that would poke a bear, and I'm not sure they want to do that.
Well, again, it comes down, do they feel like they have a choice?
True.
Yeah, because it's all that desperation thing. Would they try to do that? Now, also, didn't Fannis come out and say that the prosecutions in Georgia aren't going to happen? The trial will extend beyond the next election.
Yes,
There's no way to get.
Yes.
Yeah. So the New York indictments are the only ones left, right? That
Yep,
could affect that.
so.
And but the result of those New York indictments isn't
But
that
there's good
more,
stuff happening in that too.
but
And then
isn't, yeah, there is, but follow me on this. Aren't the New York indictments more about finding him $250 million and telling him he can't operate in New York anymore and kick him out?
no, I think they're saying he can go to jail. They're wanting to put him in jail.
Okay.
He's facing
So,
jail.
okay, that comes from the special prosecutor they've got, right? Smith,
Yes,
because he's trying to do the insurrection part of it and the whole thing like that. But the
he
courts,
is. But the other part about that is you've got a ruling in that case that Jack Smith wanted to redact part of the evidence and part of the paperwork and stuff, and the judge ruled. I think it was an appellate judge. I don't think it was the crazy one that's running it, but said no. If you're going to do this, everything is admissible. Everything is on the table. Exculpatory evidence, everything is going to be put out there, which in my mind is a good thing.
oh yeah,
That's a great thing for Trump.
absolutely. So a lot of their strategies just aren't, this is why they're panicking, because a lot of their strategies aren't going the way they wanted them to go. And I think there's a lot of speculation in Georgia that when they were first allocating resources and doing things, that they assumed that these indictments would turn Georgians against Trump.
Did not happen.
Backfired. It's gone absolutely the wrong direction. And I think that's why New Jersey's coming around. I think people in New Jersey, they know who Trump was. They know what he's done. And they see the country now compared to what it was then. Americans aren't stupid. Even some of these people that live in these Democrat strongholds, they're not all stupid people.
Right.
So they see what's happening there. Now, here's something to be aware of. As we get closer and closer to the election, their goal, regardless of the martial law things, because we keep focusing on how it's going to affect the election, I want to talk about how it's going to affect the people, because the things they're going to do are going to be to destroy your life, Todd. It's kind of similar to what you talked about earlier, how you're angry, you're frustrated, and it's hard, and you're so tired of having, we can't afford to be wary and well-doing right now.
Not now.
It's going to take an inner strength for every single one of us over the next 11 months, because I'm telling you some of the things they can do, they may do. Food may disappear off the shelves. They may try to lock us down again, whether it's martial law, a COVID type scenario, but they may try to destroy businesses and lock businesses down and keep us at home. Okay.
Fuel shortages.
They already have set up fertilizer shortages that is going to affect food production. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be higher prices. Things are going to be scarcer. People are going to be stretched. Bankruptcies are probably going to go through the roof over the next 11 months. I mean, we're going to see all of these types of things happen. And in addition to that, personal freedom restrictions. They keep coming out. Why is it all of a sudden there's this huge emphasis in all of these different states and all these different places to pass all these draconian gun laws? Okay, they're happening now for a reason. Okay, so they're going to be trying to do anything and everything they possibly can to affect your life, and they are going to come after us. And this is the hard thing for me to say, but I believe this to be true. any individuals out there that are above the radar. And so if you're sitting at home, if you're one of our listeners, probably doesn't affect you, but if you're being, if you're going out in public, if you're standing up, you're going to have a target on your back.
If you're a Christian.
If you're a Christian, you're going to have a target on your back. So this gets back to what I opened up with. What does it mean to be an American in today's times? What's really in your heart? What will you stand for? What will you not back down from? So we need to be prepared. I'm not trying to be doom and gloom. I'm actually very optimistic because we will win this. But when it's all said and done, it's not just about what you want to tell your grandkids someday. It's about what how you look at your own self and your own heart. That's what's going to really be the result of the next 11 months. How do you feel about yourself when it's all said and done? So that's really all I had today, Todd. That's what I wanted to go through. But if there's anything else you want to throw out there, we can certainly talk about it. But I feel strongly this is what we're facing. I wanted to get the word out and, do the prep, make sure your pantries are stocked, make sure you got gas in the car, buy a few extra gas cans if you need to, any other supplies you need. A lot of people are selling antibiotics now, which I think is awesome. Okay.
Yep.
So stock up, make sure you take care of you and yours, and just be prepared to weather the storm.
Well, I think in times such as these, I mean, it's going to take conviction, perseverance, cooperation. Get you a group of people that maybe you can exchange stuff with, that you can count on. Maybe you swap out some meat for some bread type of thing down the road. But I don't think getting your team put together and having the conversation is a bad thing. If it doesn't come to fruition, then good for us. But I would also challenge you, if it doesn't bring you peace at this point in where we're at in our country and for your personal sanity, get rid of it. Because right now, I think really, sitting in a church pew, having a conversation with God is about really the only place I find absolute peace today.
Mm-hmm.
And if you buy into everything else that's going on, the chaos, the infighting, they want that. They want you to buy into that. They want you to be miserable. They want you to really believe how bad things really are. So surround yourself with people, like-minded people that understand what's going on, and unplug from the things that don't put peace in front of you and for you and your family. I think
it's that is the ultimate advice. That's great advice. One other thing that doesn't even come close to comparing to it that I did want to mention, I don't want to forget. I would encourage everybody to have a family emergency plan, so that if communications are cut off or whatever, have a rally point, have someone designated in the family that collects all the information on everybody that can, that people can stay in touch with. Maybe have a couple in case, one of them's unavailable. But just think in the future in detail, so that you can prepare yourself for if something crazy happens. And when you do that, the peace of mind coming from that is pretty significant, at least speaking from personal experience. So, but you're right, pray.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line, pray. So,
and lock arms with other patriots.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Do you have anything else, my friend?
I do not. It's good to see you. Good to visit with you. This just a conversation. We call it a podcast, but I guess it's just more of a conversation. But I always get stuff out of this. So thanks for visiting.
Absolutely. And thank you to every one of our supporters, our members, the listeners. Thank you to all Americans, right? I mean,
yep.
Appreciate you.
Remember, it's always a great day to be an American, and communism still sucks, and it'll always suck. We'll catch you all in the next one. Thanks, everyone.